Welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Susan Kennedy. Much of the work of the Montgomery County Council takes place behind the walls of 100 Maryland Avenue. But in this show, we take you out into the community where that work is making a difference. And this month, we start with an idea for a youth cafe that brings together young people to participate in activities interesting to teens. The idea is the work of Councilmember Nancy Navarro. And the results? Here's the bottom line.
We've created a Teen Xscape Club, which is a youth cafe for high school students to come and have a safe place to express themselves and to socialize.
The idea for the youth cafe started from a youth advisory group that Councilmember Nancy Navarro created in 2009.
Stand up and put your hands together for Councilwoman Nancy Navarro.
The Teen Xscape Club is in the East County Community Center off Briggs Cheney Road and is run by the Department of Recreation.
I happen to be the mom of an 18-year-old who's in college and a 14-year-old. And I spend a lot of time talking to them about what are the things that, preteens and teens like to do, et cetera. And what I always find is that there's a lack of opportunities for them to socialize with their friends in a positive environment after school, especially for certain areas of the county where you might have parents that don't have the resources. We need to do whatever we can in the county to then provide those mediums for them to then come together in a positive way and have a great time socializing with peers their age.
The positive environment of this Teen Xscape Club in a troubled area of East Montgomery County has impressed many parents.
I do feel my son is very safe here. I've come up here quite a number of times. The adults that work here are very positive, encouraging. They make sure they stop you and ask you for ID to sign in, so I do feel very safe with my son here.
The Department of Recreation has a strong reputation across the county for producing high-quality, well-supervised, and safe activities for children and youth to participate across the entire county.
Gabriel Albernaz, who is the director of the Department of Recreation, says he hopes this program will lead to other recreational activities for these teenagers.
And so we have heard often from youth that they're interested in more of this. And so our hope is that we can continue this in other areas, and especially here in East County.
Activities such as playing pool, music, video games, and of course eating.
We got some cold cut wraps. We have some barbecue chicken.
Were created by a collection of high school students from Paint Branch, Springbrook, and Blake.
I have about 5 core students, high school students, that have been working tirelessly, meeting once and twice a week for the past couple of weeks, or about the past month, to try and put this together.
Sharon Adelis is one of the youth leaders who is trying to get students to participate.
I'm part of the committee who brought this thing together. This is a way for them to escape. That's what it's called, the Teen Xscape Club. This is for the teens to escape, to come in, and it's to have fun, to keep their minds off their problems, and just to have stress-free, relaxing time.
There's also an art competition. Students will have an hour to create their sketches, and a grand prize of $100 will be awarded to the winner.
We do find that teenagers enjoy hanging out together, and what we see now with events is you'll have 2 or 3 trickle in, get on their cell phones and text their friends and let them know that this is a cool place to hang out, because ultimately youth are the best marketers of programs, especially youth programs.
We're having an art contest, and we have free food, we got all this free games and stuff.
Councilmember Nancy Navarro hopes this is the first step towards many of these types of youth cafes in the county.
And our goal is to continue this pilot into next year. And if it works, hopefully also expand this template throughout the county. I think that youth activities that are led by youth are always the best way to go. So thank you so much, guys.
It almost seems hard to believe that once smoking was allowed in most restaurants, office buildings, and other public places. Back in 2003, Montgomery County was one of the first jurisdictions in the nation to ban smoking in restaurants and bars. The bottom line here, a statewide ban enacted in 2007. Councilmember Phil Andrews has been at the front of this issue since he was elected back in 1998. It was dubbed as a measure that would protect the health of restaurant workers and customers by prohibiting smoking in county eating and drinking establishments. It's this step taken at the local level that's branded Councilmember Phil Andrews.
It's a law that's accomplished what it set out to do, which was to protect workers and diners from hazardous secondhand smoke. The fact is the restaurant industry continued to do well in the county. The difference was that restaurants were now safe.
But it wasn't an easy road. The bill was first approved back in 1999, only to be vetoed by then County Executive Doug Duncan. When it made it back to the council for a vote in 2003, restaurants like Clyde's and Chevy Chase argued the ban would threaten their livelihood. Did it hurt business here then when that law actually went into effect and there was no smoking allowed here at Clyde's?
Yeah, it had a very negative effect on our bar business. One fell swoop, everybody went away to where they could still smoke.
However, since the ban's enactment, restaurant receipts across the county have risen steadily, and we found the lunch crowd at Clyde's were happy to be dining smoke-free. Are you glad when you come to a restaurant, though, that there's no smoke around? Are you happy now that you can come into a smoke-free environment, not just Clyde's, but anywhere else?
I guess overall, yeah. I guess probably one of the worst things is just having the smoke blowing in your face while you're eating.
And what do you think about banning the smoking in the restaurants? What has that meant to you?
Well, it means that everyone can enjoy eating dinner, not having this smell that overcomes you, and also not having it on your clothes or in your hair.
I think it's a great law.
Why?
Just because I think it's bothersome to people who don't want to be surrounded by smoke or smell that. I don't like having it in my hotel room. I don't like having it in my restaurants. People want to smoke. I think it should be done in, public spaces outdoors where we don't have to all be inflicted by it.
If you've been a smoker, when you smell smoke, it's even worse if you were never a smoker. If you get smoke in your face, it's like as if you're about to smoke again, so it's really disgusting.
Tony Moyna has been the general manager at Clyde's for 10 years. He remembers all too well the tension surrounding the potential ban, but reluctantly acknowledges today his business is not affected by the fact patrons cannot smoke.
Well, there's other things like recessions and so forth that, sort of affect business, but whatever our business pattern is now, I don't think smoking has any bearing on it or anyone else's, because there isn't anywhere where it's allowed, so everyone's sort of in the same state of affairs.
Phil Andrews maintains the best argument for the ban is that secondhand smoke violates the rights of non-smokers and restaurant employees. It's that perspective that created a domino effect to prohibit smoking across the state of Maryland.
It's pretty clear that the other jurisdictions weren't going to go forward until someone else did. And Montgomery County worked on it for several years, and it was a big fight, and it was a lot of work. And in 2003, I sponsored the measure, and it was passed by an 8-to-1 vote.
And as an employee, Tony Moyna says a smoke-free working environment is where he wants to be. Are you happier to go into a restaurant today knowing that it's a smoke-free environment? Does that weigh into anything that you think about when you're eating a meal?
Yeah, I'd prefer not to be in a smoking environment. Wherever it is, you might be able to find one these days, but yeah, it's nice.
It's affected a lot of people. It affected thousands of restaurant workers who have served worked in restaurants over the past and bars over the last 7 years, and certainly everyone eats out from time to time. So it's probably had the most impact of the measures I've worked on, and I believe it's contributed significantly to the health of restaurant workers as well as to patrons. It's something that Montgomery County was able to lead the way on, and that once we did and people saw how well the law worked, that it didn't hurt business, and that it accomplished its purpose of protecting the public's health. And now if someone proposed repealing the smoke-free restaurant law, I'm sure there'd be people lined up around the block to say, no, this is great, keep it.
For years, residents near the Forest Glen Road train crossing in Kensington live with the familiar whistle of passing trains. Council President Valerie Irvin heard the concerns of those neighbors and went to work on their cause. What's the bottom line here? Now, for the most part, the whistles are silent thanks to a policy that implements a new quiet zone for that crossover.
Tricky to say. We are the first new quiet zone in Maryland.
Joe Rosenberg moved to Kensington 10 years ago, and for the first time this summer, he might be able to sleep with his windows open. That's because trains that pass the crossover on Forest Glen Road in Silver Spring are no longer required by law to sound their horns.
There's a train. You can see how close they are. And notice he's not blowing the horn.
Establishing the state's first quiet zone. It was Council President Valerie Irvin who helped Rosenberg with his cause after years of trying to silence those horns.
Councilmember Valerie Irvin picked up the ball when it was pretty much dropped after the hearing in front of the Transportation and Environment Committee. We had what we thought was a solution, which was the wayside horn. CSX said they didn't want anything to do with it because it wasn't something that their people were all that familiar with. We requested another study to be done by the county. I explained the situation to Valerie Irvin. I expect she had some conversation behind the scenes to make sure that this other study was done. So she helped get the process going again. We managed to finally get the quiet zone.
The CSX freight train horns, which can blast some 40 to 60 times a day, are not supposed to sound around Forest Glen Road unless there's an emergency. That according to an agreement with the County Council and federal rail authorities. Operators who do not comply can be subject to fines.
Now tell me, where is somebody on the tracks that requires this? Tell me why he's blowing it. This is a perfect example of why they really need to be monitored, because there's no reason for him to have blown the horn. They're not supposed to blow the horn unless there's a specific safety reason for doing so. Somebody's on the tracks, there's a car approaching the tracks. You saw nothing there. There was nothing there. This was typical of CSX because they just don't care. They simply don't care.
The county's transportation department installed a median barrier, additional lights, and signage near the crossing to improve safety.
But here, it's a highly residential area. That's an industrial area. It's not very highly traveled. And, you know, cars just can't go very fast here. The road is narrow, it's bumpy and so forth. But there's no reason why they have to blow the horn with these deterrents from people driving around the extended gate arm.
Rosenberg's quest wasn't without hurdles. When he moved to Leduc Drive in Kensington back in 2000, he worked to commission a study with the county's Department of Public Works. He and other residents also sent petitions to state highway and federal railroad officials. However, most seem reluctant to spend money on safety improvements required to silence the horns. Councilmember Irvin took up the neighborhood's cause in 2008 when the group approached her. She worked to gain the necessary approvals for a new median and signs at the crossing.
It's essentially a 90% improvement. You know, we still get about a half a dozen horns a day, as you just heard a few minutes ago. And if it's about a half a dozen that blow the horn, that's a 90% reduction. Yeah. And so I'm saying, okay, the cup is a lot more than half full. Some of the members got together and floored me with this very unique memento, which is crushed train horns with the tracks embossed in the back.
Interestingly enough, Joe Rosenberg has used a white noise machine to block out the sound of the passing trains for years. Now he thinks he might just be able to turn it off.
And there's different background noises. You can have waterfall, you can have babbling brook. They have one that's a train. I don't use that one. There's more to my life than just a train horn. I just feel at this point like it's a much nicer place to live for people who live close to the tracks.
Well, that does it for our show. A show that brings you the bottom line of your council members at work. For County Cable Montgomery, I'm Susan Kennedy. Thanks for tuning in.